Cleaning out the filing cabinet, I pulled out a fresh deed dated last month. My heart stopped as the house I'd lived in for 30 years was now solely in my son David's name. "Just a legal formality, Mom," he'd said when I asked about the paperwork. But this felt like theft of everything my late husband and I. The document was official with notary stamps and legal language I didn't understand. David had handled all the paperwork while I recovered from knee surgery. I trusted him completely because he was my son, and said he. The deed transfer happened 3 months ago when I was taking pain medication. I never signed anything giving David ownership of my $280,000. The house was my security and the only valuable thing I owned. David had stolen my home while pretending to help with legal paperwork. I sat in my kitchen staring at the document that changed everything forever. The deed showed that I had no legal claim to the house. David's name appeared as the sole owner with no mention of my. The transfer date coincided exactly with my surgery recovery when I was. I remembered David offering to handle paperwork and manage my affairs temporarily. He had been so helpful and caring during my difficult recovery period. The pain medication made me trust his explanations about legal documents completely. David assured me that everything was just temporary arrangements for my protection. I never imagined that my own son would steal the house from. The betrayal felt worse than losing my husband because this was intentional. My son had planned this theft while I was vulnerable and trusting. The deed paperwork looked professional with David's wife, Jessica's real estate company. Jessica had notarized several documents during my recovery without explaining their true. I realized that Jessica's expertise had been used to execute this property. David and Jessica had coordinated this theft while claiming to help with. The real estate license gave Jessica knowledge about property transfers and legal. I understood now why David had been asking questions about my estate. He wanted to know exactly what assets I owned before stealing them. Jessica's professional connections made the fraudulent transfer appear legitimate and proper too. The couple had been planning this property theft for months while pretending. My son and daughter-in-law had betrayed my trust in the most devastating. I called David immediately, demanding an explanation for this shocking property transfer. David sounded surprised that I had found the deed and claimed it. "Mom, this was just for tax purposes and protecting your assets." He insisted that the house was still really mine despite the legal. David explained that the transfer would protect me from future healthcare costs. His calm tone made me question whether I was overreacting to legal. Jessica got on the phone to support David's explanations about estate planning. She used professional language about asset protection and legal strategies that confused. The couple presented a united front, claiming everything was for my benefit. I felt confused and wondered if I was missing something important about. David promised to visit tomorrow to explain everything in detail about My neighbor Barbara Hendricks knocked on my door after seeing me crying. Barbara had been my friend for 15 years and knew about family. I showed her the deed and explained David's confusing explanations about protection. Barbara's background as a paralegal made her naturally suspicious of sudden legal. She examined the document carefully and found several concerning elements about Barbara pointed out that I should have had independent legal representation for. My neighbor explained that legitimate estate planning included the property owner in. Barbara offered to research the legal implications of this property transfer immediately. She suspected that David was not telling me the truth about Barbara's professional experience. With legal documents made her concerned about potential fraud. My neighbor promised to help me understand what had really happened with. The evening was spent reviewing all the documents David had handled during. I found power of attorney papers that I didn't remember signing during. Barbara examined each document and found inconsistencies in the signatures and dates. Several papers appeared to have been signed while I was medicated. My neighbor documented everything that looked suspicious about the legal paperwork David. Barbara explained that legitimate family assistance didn't require secret property transfers or. I realized that David had taken advantage of my medical vulnerability to. The systematic nature of document signing suggested careful planning rather than spontaneous. Barbara promised to contact her legal connections about challenging the fraudulent property. I felt grateful for Barbara's friendship and professional expertise during this crisis. The property deed represented 40 years of marriage and building a life. My husband and I had worked 2 jobs each to afford. The house held memories of raising David and celebrating family milestones together. I had planned to leave the house to David eventually, but David's theft violated everything we had taught him about honesty and family. The house was my security for aging in place and maintaining. David knew that losing the house would force me into assisted living. My son had stolen my independence along with my most valuable possession. The betrayal felt like losing my husband all over again, but worse. I wondered how David could look at me while planning this systematic. Barbara returned with initial research about the property transfer and legal options. She had contacted attorney friends who specialized in elder law, and my neighbor explained that property transfers during medical recovery periods were suspicious. Barbara discovered that the deed transfer was unnecessary for any tax. Professional, legal opinion indicated that I had been defrauded by family members. My neighbor found similar cases where adult children stole property from elderly. Barbara documented everything for potential legal action against David and Jessica's fraud. She explained that I could challenge the property transfer through court. My neighbor's investigation revealed that this was deliberate theft rather than estate. Barbara promised to help me find legal representation specializing in property fraud. The discovery of the deed changed everything I thought I knew about. David had been planning this theft while pretending to care about the systematic nature of the fraud required months of preparation and coordination. Jessica's real estate expertise made the property transfer appear legitimate and professional. I realized that my son viewed me as an obstacle too. The betrayal destroyed my trust in family relationships and David's supposed love. My neighbor Barbara's support gave me hope that I could fight this. The property theft was just the beginning of what I would discover. David and Jessica had been planning comprehensive exploitation of my trust, and tomorrow would bring more shocking revelations about my son's systematic campaign against. David arrived at my house the next morning carrying a briefcase full of papers. He looked professional and confident, as if he could explain away this. "Mom, I know the deed transfer confused you, but everything is fine." David sat at my kitchen table and spread out documents that. His calm demeanor made me question whether I was overreacting to something. Jessica joined us and immediately began using professional real estate language about. She explained that property transfers were common for estate planning and tax. David nodded along while Jessica talked about protecting assets from future health care. I felt overwhelmed by their coordinated presentation of legal explanations that sounded. The couple seemed prepared for this conversation, as if they had rehearsed. Barbara arrived during their explanation and listened carefully to David's claims about. David insisted that the house was still really mine despite the legal. The transfer was just on paper for protection purposes, he claimed repeatedly. "Mom, you know I would never steal from you or hurt you." His wounded tone made me feel guilty for questioning his motives behind. David explained that elderly people often transferred property to avoid estate taxes. Jessica supported his explanation by citing examples from her real estate practice. The couple presented a united front claiming everything was for my financial. I wanted to believe them because David was my son and I. Barbara asked pointed questions about the necessity of this specific property transfer. David became defensive when Barbara challenged his explanations about estate planning, and Jessica took over the explanation using her real estate expertise to justify. She claimed that the property transfer would protect me from future. The house could be at risk if I ever needed expensive medical. Jessica explained that Medicaid required spending down assets before providing coverage for. David nodded along while Jessica described scenarios where I could lose. The couple painted frightening pictures of government seizure of my property if. I felt scared by their explanations about losing everything I had worked. Barbara asked why I hadn't been consulted about these supposed protective measures. Jessica claimed that elderly people often don't understand complex estate planning decisions. David agreed that they had handled everything to avoid confusing me with. The explanations became more elaborate as Barbara continued asking specific legal questions. David claimed that my signature on the transfer documents had been. Jessica insisted that I had agreed to the arrangement during my recovery. The couple presented a version of events that didn't match my memory. I remembered being medicated and confused during my surgery recovery period completely. David claimed that I had asked him to handle all legal matters. Jessica supported his story by showing documents with what appeared to. Barbara examined the signatures carefully and found inconsistencies in the writing, and the neighbor's paralegal background made her suspicious of the documentation presented by. I began to realize that David and Jessica were lying about. Barbara challenged their explanations by asking for copies of all documents. David became reluctant to provide paperwork that he claimed supported his story. Jessica tried to redirect the conversation away from specific legal details about. The couple seemed uncomfortable with Barbara's professional questions about property law, and I noticed that David couldn't explain why alternative estate planning methods weren't. Barbara pointed out that legitimate asset protection didn't require secret property transfers. David claimed that time constraints during my medical recovery required quick action. Jessica supported his explanation about emergency decision-making during health crises that Barbara asked why independent legal representation hadn't been provided for such major. The neighbors' questions revealed gaps in David and Jessica's explanations about. Tyler and Madison arrived while their parents were explaining the property transfer. My grandchildren seemed unaware of the deed change and looked confused by. Tyler asked why his parents were talking about Grandma's house like she. Madison wondered if I was moving somewhere and needed help with. The innocent questions from my grandchildren revealed that David and Jessica hadn't. Tyler pointed out that the house was still Grandma's home, regardless of. Madison asked if the paperwork meant that I couldn't live here. David and Jessica exchanged uncomfortable glances as their children asked direct questions. The grandchildren's confusion proved that this wasn't the family decision David claimed. I realized that Tyler and Madison had been kept in the dark. Barbara asked David directly why he hadn't discussed this decision with. My neighbor pointed out that property transfers typically involved family meetings, and David claimed that he didn't want to worry me with complicated legal. Jessica insisted that they had protected me from stressful decision-making during. Barbara challenged their explanations by asking why less drastic measures weren't considered. The neighbors' questions revealed that David and Jessica couldn't justify their specific. I began to understand that the property transfer wasn't necessary for any. Barbara's professional knowledge exposed holes in their explanations about estate planning, and David became increasingly agitated as Barbara continued questioning their legal justifications for. The couple's defensive reactions suggested that they were hiding something important about. The conversation revealed that David and Jessica had researched my financial situation. They knew exactly what assets I owned and their approximate values completely. David mentioned details about my savings and investments that I hadn't shared. Jessica demonstrated knowledge about my property's market value and tax implications that. Barbara asked how they had obtained detailed information about my financial affairs. David claimed that responsible family members should understand elderly parents' financial situations. Jessica insisted that her real estate expertise required her to research property. The couple's extensive knowledge about my finances seemed suspicious given their recent. Barbara documented their admissions about researching my assets without my knowledge, or. I realized that David and Jessica had been planning this property transfer. The explanations continued for 2 hours without addressing my core concerns about. David and Jessica repeatedly claimed that everything was for my protection, and Barbara's questions revealed that their explanations were inconsistent and legally questionable at. The couple couldn't provide satisfactory answers about why alternative methods weren't used. I felt manipulated by their coordinated presentation designed to confuse rather than. Tyler and Madison looked uncomfortable watching their parents argue with Barbara about. The grandchildren seemed to understand that something wasn't right about this entire. David finally admitted that the property transfer couldn't be easily reversed without. Jessica acknowledged that I no longer had legal ownership of my home. The admissions confirmed my worst fears about what David had done to. Barbara returned from her research with disturbing information about Jessica's real estate activities. My neighbor had contacted professional connections who had noticed suspicious behavior patterns. Jessica had been researching my property value extensively for the past 6 months. The real estate records showed multiple appraisals and market analyses conducted without. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been studying comparable home sales and my professional appraisers had visited my property, claiming Jessica had authorized the evaluations. The systematic property research suggested that Jessica was planning to sell my house was worth $280,000 according to recent. Jessica had been calculating potential profits from liquidating my primary asset while Barbara realized that the property transfer was part of a systematic plan. The timeline of real estate activity coincided with David's increasing financial problems completely. Barbara's investigation revealed that David's insurance business was failing due to poor. Professional licensing records showed complaints against David for unpaid client claims totaling My neighbor discovered that David had been borrowing money against expected commissions. The insurance business debts had been accumulating for over 18 months, requiring. Barbara learned that David owed $43,000 to various creditors, and the mounting debt explained David's sudden interest in my property and financial gain. Professional debt collectors had been threatening legal action against David for unpaid. Barbara documented that the property theft was motivated by financial desperation rather. The evidence showed that David needed my house sale proceeds to satisfy. Barbara's research uncovered that Jessica had been meeting with mortgage brokers about. Professional lending consultations had focused on extracting equity from my property through. Jessica had been exploring reverse mortgages and home equity loans that required. The mortgage discussions occurred while I was recovering from surgery and unable. Barbara learned that Jessica had been frustrated by legal requirements protecting elderly. Professional lending standards required my direct consent and independent legal counsel for. Jessica had been researching methods to circumvent safeguards designed to protect elderly property. The systematic mortgage consultation proved that Jessica was planning comprehensive property exploitation against. Barbara documented that multiple financial institutions had been contacted about accessing my professional mortgage fraud was being planned to extract my house value while the investigation revealed that David and Jessica had been coordinating their systematic approach. Barbara discovered that they had been dividing responsibilities for different aspects of. David handled the legal paperwork while Jessica managed the real estate, and professional coordination suggested months of planning rather than spontaneous family assistance during. The couple had been researching elder law and asset protection strategies specifically. Barbara learned that they had attended seminars about estate planning and property. Professional education was being used to exploit rather than protect elderly family. The systematic approach proved that David and Jessica viewed me as a. Barbara's investigation showed that they had been studying methods to gain complete. The evidence indicated that property theft was part of a comprehensive elder. Barbara found evidence that Jessica had been contacting assisted living facilities near. Professional consultations had focused on immediate placement rather than future planning for. Jessica had been telling facility staff that I could no longer manage. The assisted living research coincided with the property transfer, suggesting coordinated planning. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been studying Medicaid eligibility requirements and spend down. Professional placement would require liquidating my assets, making the house sale appear. The systematic facility research showed that Jessica wanted to eliminate my financial. Barbara learned that assisted living placement would make property control easier for. Professional manipulation was being used to justify stealing my house and forcing. The evidence showed that Jessica had been planning to institutionalize me against. The real estate conspiracy included plans to market my house immediately after. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been preparing listing materials and marketing strategies. Professional photographs had been taken of my property without my knowledge, or Jessica had been calculating listing prices and commission structures for the anticipated. The marketing preparation proved that house sale was imminent rather than future. Barbara learned that Jessica had been coordinating with other real estate agents. Professional networks had been contacted about handling the sale of elderly-owned property. The systematic marketing preparation showed that Jessica was treating my house like. Barbara documented that real estate fraud was being planned while claiming to. The evidence proved that Jessica was using her professional license to enable. Barbara's investigation revealed that David and Jessica had been hiding their professional. Credit reports showed extensive debts and financial obligations they hadn't disclosed. The couple owed money to multiple creditors, including dangerous private lenders who. Barbara discovered that gambling debts comprised a significant portion of their financial. Professional debt counseling records showed that David had been struggling with gambling. The addiction explained the desperate measures being taken to access my property. Barbara learned that Jessica had been pressuring David to solve their financial. Professional marriage counseling notes indicated that financial stress was destroying their relationship. The couple's desperation made them willing to steal from elderly family members. Barbara documented that addiction and debt were motivating systematic elder abuse against. The real estate conspiracy extended beyond simple property theft to comprehensive financial exploitation. Barbara discovered that David and Jessica had been researching my retirement accounts. Professional investment advisors had been contacted about liquidating my savings and pension. The couple had been studying methods to gain access to my. Barbara learned that they had been pressuring my financial advisor about changing. Professional manipulation was being attempted across all aspects of my financial security. The systematic approach proved that stealing my house was just the beginning. Barbara documented that David and Jessica were planning to liquidate everything The evidence showed that comprehensive elder abuse was being disguised as family. Professional investigation revealed that this was criminal enterprise rather than estate planning. Barbara presented overwhelming evidence that Jessica's real estate expertise was being used criminally. Professional licensing boards would be interested in hearing about systematic property fraud. The couple had violated multiple laws regarding elderly property rights and financial. Barbara's documentation would support criminal charges against both David and Jessica. Professional legal consultation would be necessary to stop this systematic property theft. The evidence proved that David and Jessica had been planning comprehensive financial. Barbara promised to help me contact elder law attorneys who specialized in. Professional legal intervention was essential for recovering my stolen property and protecting. The real estate conspiracy had been exposed, but legal action was required. Tomorrow would bring the next phase of David and Jessica's systematic campaign. Barbara's investigation uncovered an even more disturbing aspect of David and Jessica's scheme. My neighbor had discovered that Jessica had been contacting assisted living facilities. Professional consultations had focused on immediate placement rather than future planning. The facility staff had been told that I could no longer manage. Jessica claimed that I was experiencing cognitive decline and needed supervised care. Barbara learned that Jessica had been spreading lies about my mental. Professional manipulation was being used to justify institutional placement against my wishes. The assisted living research began 3 months ago during my surgery recovery. Jessica had been telling facility directors that my family was handling. The systematic facility shopping proved that institutionalization was part of their comprehensive. Barbara documented that assisted living placement would enable David and Jessica's property. The timeline of assisted living research coincided perfectly with the property transfer scheme. Jessica had been studying Medicaid eligibility requirements and spend-down rules. Professional placement consultants had been contacted about qualifying me for state-funded. The Medicaid research focused on methods to eliminate my assets quickly. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been learning about nursing home qualifying. Professional spend-down strategies required liquidating all assets, including my house. Jessica's research included techniques for forcing elderly people into institutional care. The systematic Medicaid planning proved that Jessica wanted to eliminate my financial. Barbara learned that assisted living placement would justify the house sale as professional manipulation of government programs was being planned to enable comprehensive elder. Barbara found evidence that Jessica had been touring multiple facilities with different. Professional consultations included discussions about memory care units and secured wards. Jessica had been asking about policies for residents with family conflicts. The facility tours focused on locations that accepted problem residents. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been researching facilities known for minimal family. Professional placement would isolate me from community support and independent legal representation. Jessica had been asking about visitor restrictions and family contact policies. The systematic facility research showed that Jessica wanted to control my access. Barbara learned that assisted living placement was designed to prevent me from. Professional isolation through institutionalization would eliminate witnesses to their systematic elder abuse. The investigation revealed that David had been supporting Jessica's assisted living research. Barbara discovered that David had been meeting with facility social workers about. Professional consultations focused on emergency placement procedures for elderly family members experiencing. David had been claiming that I was becoming dangerous to myself. The facility staff had been told that I needed immediate intervention. Barbara learned that David had been researching involuntary commitment procedures for elderly. Professional manipulation of medical authority was being planned to force institutional placement. David's insurance background gave him knowledge about healthcare systems and placement. Barbara documented that both David and Jessica were coordinating comprehensive institutionalization plans. Professional conspiracy was being used to justify stealing my house and controlling. Barbara's research uncovered that the assisted living scheme included financial planning elements. Jessica had been studying how asset liquidation worked for institutional care. Professional consultation focused on using house sale proceeds to pay for. The financial planning included strategies for spending down my savings quickly. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been calculating how long my assets. Professional spend-down planning was designed to qualify me for Medicaid coverage after. Jessica had been researching methods to transfer remaining assets to family. The systematic financial planning proved that assisted living was designed to eliminate. Barbara learned that the couple planned to control my money while claiming professional elder abuse was being disguised as responsible family care planning for. The facility research included specific inquiries about residents who questioned their placement. Jessica had been asking about policies for dealing with elderly people. Professional staff had been contacted about managing residents who claimed family. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been researching medication protocols for agitated elderly. The systematic inquiry about controlling resistant residents proved that Jessica expected opposition. Professional consultation focused on methods to silence elderly people who complained. Jessica had been learning about legal procedures for involuntary medication of institutional. Barbara documented that the assisted living scheme included plans to chemically control. Professional medical manipulation through institutional care would prevent me from seeking. The evidence showed that Jessica was planning comprehensive control through forced placement. Barbara learned that the assisted living research included backup plans for different. Jessica had been studying multiple facility types, including memory care and professional consultation covered psychiatric facilities and locked wards for elderly people. The backup planning proved that Jessica was determined to institutionalize me regardless. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been researching court-ordered placement procedures for elderly. Professional legal manipulation through guardianship would enable forced institutional placement without my. Jessica had been coordinating with the property transfer to support incompetency claims. The systematic planning showed that assisted living was part of comprehensive legal. Barbara documented that Jessica was using her professional real estate knowledge to. Professional coordination between property theft and forced placement proved systematic elder abuse. The assisted living setup revealed the true scope of David and Jessica's systematic. Barbara's investigation proved that institutionalization was planned to hide property theft and professional facility consultation was being used to eliminate my ability to fight. The couple had been researching every aspect of forced placement and asset. Barbara discovered that the assisted living scheme required convincing authorities that professional manipulation of medical and legal systems was being coordinated to enable. Jessica's real estate expertise was being used to steal my house while the evidence showed that David and Jessica were planning comprehensive destruction of. Barbara documented that assisted living placement was designed to prevent legal challenges. Professional investigation revealed that this was sophisticated elder abuse requiring immediate legal. The discovery of the assisted living setup completed the picture of systematic elder. Barbara's investigation had uncovered property theft, financial manipulation, and forced institutional placement. Professional coordination between multiple systems proved that David and Jessica were planning. The couple had been studying elder law to exploit rather than protect. Barbara realized that time was critical because the institutionalization plans were advancing. Professional legal intervention would be necessary to stop this comprehensive elder abuse. The evidence was overwhelming and would support criminal charges against both David. Barbara promised to help me contact attorneys who specialized in elder abuse. Professional advocacy was essential for protecting my independence and recovering my stolen. Tomorrow would bring the most important legal battle of my entire life. My appointment with Dr. Martinez took an unexpected turn when he seemed unusually concerned. The physician had been my primary doctor for 12 years and understood. "Dorothy, I need to discuss some troubling requests I've been receiving from David." Dr. Martinez explained that my son had been pressuring him for cognitive. "David has been insisting that you're experiencing serious memory problems and confusion." The physician looked uncomfortable as he described David's inappropriate medical requests regarding. I had never exhibited symptoms that would warrant psychological evaluations or dementia. Dr. Martinez expressed confusion about David's claims given my normal behavior during. The physician had been resisting David's pressure for unnecessary medical interventions. Professional medical ethics prevented Dr. Martinez from participating in questionable evaluations designed. The conversation revealed that David was attempting to create false medical documentation. Dr. Martinez promised to document David's inappropriate requests for potential legal proceedings. The physician revealed that David had been attending my medical appointments without. Dr. Martinez explained that David would interrupt and speak for me during, "Your son has been providing information about symptoms that I don't observe." David had been claiming that I experienced severe confusion and disorientation the physician found these reports inconsistent with my clear communication during office. Dr. Martinez had been concerned about family interference in medical decision-making. David's behavior suggested that he was trying to influence medical opinions about. The physician explained that David had been researching dementia symptoms and medications. Professional medical judgment indicated that I didn't require the interventions David was. Dr. Martinez documented that David's medical claims were inconsistent with clinical observations. The systematic medical manipulation was designed to support other concerning family behavior. Barbara accompanied me to discuss David's medical manipulation with Dr. Martinez privately. The physician expressed relief at having witnesses to David's concerning behavior regarding. Dr. Martinez explained that David had been scheduling unnecessary medical tests and consultations. Professional medical standards required patient consent for evaluations, but David had been. The physician revealed that David had been researching medications that could cause. Dr. Martinez had refused to prescribe drugs that weren't medically indicated for. David had become argumentative when denied inappropriate medical interventions for my supposed. The physician suspected that David was attempting to create medical justification for. Barbara documented that medical manipulation was being used to support other concerning. Dr. Martinez promised to provide testimony about David's inappropriate medical requests if professional medical cooperation would be essential for exposing David's systematic elder abuse. The investigation revealed that David had been contacting other medical professionals about. Barbara learned that David had been shopping for physicians who would support. Professional medical networks had been approached about providing questionable competency evaluations for. David had been frustrated by ethical medical professionals who refused to participate. The systematic medical shopping proved that David needed false documentation to enable. Barbara documented that multiple healthcare providers had been uncomfortable with David's requests. Professional medical fraud was being attempted to support broader financial exploitation schemes. The evidence showed that David was willing to compromise my healthcare for. Barbara's investigation revealed that medical manipulation was coordinated with property theft, and the pattern proved that David was using multiple tactics to exploit my. Professional healthcare fraud was another component of David's comprehensive elder abuse scheme. Dr. Martinez revealed that David had been pressuring for prescriptions that could cause. The physician explained that certain medications could create confusion and memory problems. David has been insisting that you need medication for agitation and anxiety. Professional medical evaluation indicated that I didn't exhibit symptoms requiring psychiatric medication. Dr. Martinez had been concerned that inappropriate prescriptions could harm my cognitive. The physician suspected that David wanted medications that would make me appear. Professional ethics prevented Dr. Martinez from prescribing unnecessary drugs that could damage. David had researched medications online and was specifically requesting drugs that caused. The systematic medication requests proved that David wanted to chemically induce cognitive. Dr. Martinez documented that David's medical requests were designed to harm rather. Professional medical manipulation was being coordinated with property theft and assisted living. The evidence showed that David was attempting medical fraud to support financial. The physician discovered that David had been researching competency evaluation procedures through professional. Medical websites had been accessed regarding cognitive testing and mental capacity assessments. David had been studying methods to make elderly people appear mentally incompetent. Dr. Martinez found computer evidence of David's research into medical manipulation techniques. Professional medical protocols were being studied to exploit vulnerabilities in competency determinations. The systematic research proved that David's medical requests were premeditated rather than. Barbara documented that David had been planning medical manipulation for several months. Dr. Martinez realized that my son was attempting sophisticated medical fraud too. The evidence showed that David viewed healthcare providers as tools to enable. Professional medical manipulation was being coordinated with property theft and forced institutional. The comprehensive scheme required medical documentation to support claims about my supposed. Dr. Martinez understood that David's medical fraud was part of systematic elder. Barbara's investigation revealed that David had been spreading false medical information about. Neighbors and family members had been told that I was experiencing. David had been creating a narrative that I needed medical supervision, and the lies about my health were being used to justify systematic isolation. Barbara learned that David had been claiming I was forgetting medications, and professional medical records contradicted all of David's claims about my supposed doctor. Martinez confirmed that I demonstrated normal cognitive function during all medical. The systematic lies about my health were designed to support broader exploitation. Barbara documented that medical manipulation was being used to enable financial crimes. The evidence proved that David was willing to destroy my reputation too. Professional character assassination through false medical claims was coordinated with property. The medical lies were designed to justify assisted living placement and house. Doctor. Martinez offered to provide professional testimony about my true mental state. The physician could testify that I demonstrated clear thinking and appropriate responses. Professional medical records would contradict any claims about cognitive decline or incompetency. Dr. Martinez promised to document David's inappropriate medical requests and manipulation attempts. The physician's testimony would be crucial for proving that I remained mentally. Barbara arranged for independent medical evaluation to definitively establish my cognitive competency. Professional medical evidence would expose David's systematic lies about my supposed mental. Dr. Martinez's cooperation provided essential documentation for potential legal proceedings against David. The physician's professional reputation would lend credibility to testimony about David's medical evidence would be fundamental for proving that David was systematically lying. Professional healthcare testimony would expose the coordination between medical fraud and property. The evidence was mounting that David was attempting comprehensive elder abuse disguised. The medical manipulation investigation revealed that David had been attempting comprehensive healthcare fraud. Professional medical providers had been pressured to participate in systematic patient. Dr. Martinez's refusal to cooperate had frustrated David's plans to create false. The physician's ethical stance protected me from potentially harmful medications and unnecessary. Barbara documented that medical manipulation was coordinated with property theft and assisted. Professional healthcare fraud was being attempted to support claims about my supposed. The evidence showed that David was willing to compromise my health too. Dr. Martinez's cooperation provided crucial testimony for exposing David's systematic elder abuse. Medical manipulation was another component of comprehensive exploitation targeting my independence, and tomorrow would bring the next phase of David's systematic campaign requiring legal. Professional medical testimony would be essential for proving that David was attempting. The battle to protect my health and independence required immediate, professional legal. Barbara's investigation into my financial affairs revealed the most shocking betrayal yet. My neighbor had contacted her friend Margaret at First National Bank about suspicion. Margaret had noticed concerning patterns in my accounts over the past 4. The banker revealed that David had obtained power of attorney over my. Barbara learned that forged documents had been used to gain complete financial. The power of attorney papers showed signatures that didn't match my handwriting. Margaret documented that $22,000 had been systematically transferred from my. The unauthorized withdrawals occurred while I was recovering from surgery and medicated. Barbara discovered that David had been draining my retirement savings to cover. The financial theft coincided with David's mounting business debts and gambling losses. Professional banking analysis proved that David was stealing my money systematically. The timeline of financial manipulation began during my surgery recovery when Barbara's investigation revealed that David had been planning this theft for months. Professional financial advisors had been contacted about liquidating my investments and retirement. David had been researching methods to access elderly parents' assets without. The systematic financial planning proved that David viewed me as a source. Barbara learned that David owed significant money to dangerous creditors who were. Professional debt collectors had been threatening legal action against David for unpaid. The gambling debts had been accumulating for over 2 years while Barbara documented that my stolen money was being used to pay off. The financial desperation explained David's willingness to steal from his own mother. Barbara discovered that my Social Security payments had been redirected to an account. The monthly payments were being deposited into David's personal checking account. I had been wondering why my automatic deposits seemed smaller recently. Barbara learned that David had forged paperwork to change my direct deposit Professional investigation revealed that Social Security fraud was being committed against me. The redirected payments totaled over $8,000 in unauthorized income for. Barbara documented that David had been stealing my government benefits while claiming. The Social Security theft was designed to create financial dependence on David. Professional fraud was being committed to make me believe I needed. Barbara realized that David was systematically destroying my financial independence through multiple. The investigation revealed that David had been accessing my investment accounts without. Barbara learned that David had been liquidating my retirement funds and stock. Professional financial advisors had been pressured to execute transactions they found suspicious. David had been claiming that I was becoming mentally incompetent and needed. The investment liquidation totaled over $15,000 in unauthorized asset sales. Barbara discovered that David had been studying estate planning to exploit. Professional financial manipulation was being used to access my life savings while the systematic liquidation was designed to eliminate my financial security and create. Barbara documented that David had been planning to spend down all my. The investment theft was coordinated with property transfer and assisted living plans. Barbara's banking connections revealed that David had been researching Medicaid spend-down rules. Professional consultations had focused on methods to qualify elderly people for state-funded. David had been studying asset protection strategies that actually benefited him rather. The Medicaid research included techniques for transferring wealth to family members while Barbara learned that David had been planning to eliminate all my propless assets. Professional spend-down planning was being used to justify stealing everything I owned. David's research included methods to make asset liquidation appear legitimate and necessary. The Medicaid fraud was designed to qualify me for institutional care while Barbara documented that David was using government programs to enable systematic elder. Professional manipulation of social services was part of David's comprehensive financial exploitation. The financial investigation uncovered that Jessica had been supporting David's systematic theft. Barbara learned that Jessica's real estate expertise was being used to facilitate professional coordination between David and Jessica, made the financial crimes more sophisticated. Jessica had been providing advice about property transfers and asset liquidation that the couple had been working together to eliminate my financial independence through. Barbara discovered that Jessica had been researching reverse mortgages and equity loans. Professional real estate knowledge was being used to extract maximum value from. The systematic coordination proved that both David and Jessica were planning comprehensive. Barbara documented that the financial crimes required professional expertise to execute successfully. Professional conspiracy was being used to steal everything I had worked for. Barbara found evidence that David had been intercepting my mail to hide. Professional postal theft was being committed to prevent me from discovering unauthorized. David had been opening bank statements and investment reports before I could. The mail interception explained why I hadn't noticed the systematic financial theft. Barbara learned that David had been forging my signature on financial documents. Professional document fraud was being committed to authorized transactions I never approved. The forged signatures appeared on checks, investment changes, and account transfers that. Barbara documented that David had been practicing my signature to improve his. Professional handwriting analysis would be needed to prove the systematic forgery David. The mail theft was a federal crime that supported other financial abuse. The investigation revealed that David had been lying to financial institutions about prize. Barbara learned that David had been claiming I was becoming mentally incompetent. Professional manipulation was being used to justify unauthorized access to my financial. David had been telling bankers and advisors that I needed family assistance. The lies about my mental state were designed to make financial theft. Barbara discovered that David had been researching guardianship laws to gain complete. Professional legal research was being conducted to find methods to eliminate my. David's systematic lies were coordinated with medical manipulation and property transfer schemes. Barbara documented that David was using multiple tactics to support financial exploitation. Professional deception was being used across all aspects of my financial life. Barbara's comprehensive financial investigation revealed the scope of David's systematic theft from. Professional banking analysis showed that over $35,000 had been stolen. The financial crimes included unauthorized account access, forged documents, and Social Security. David had been planning to liquidate all my assets while claiming to Barbara learned that the financial theft was coordinated with property transfer and professional elder abuse was being disguised as responsible family financial management for. The evidence would support criminal charges for financial exploitation and fraud against. Barbara promised to help me contact attorneys who specialized in financial elder. Professional legal action would be necessary to recover my stolen money, and tomorrow would bring the legal battle to stop David's systematic financial destruction. William Torres's law office felt imposing as Barbara and I entered for our urgent consultation. The elder law attorney specialized in protecting seniors from family financial exploitation. William reviewed the comprehensive evidence Barbara had compiled about David's systematic campaign against. Mr. Torres explained that guardianship was the most serious legal threat elderly. Dorothy, I need to inform you that David has filed preliminary paperwork. The attorney revealed that my son had petitioned the court for emergency. William explained that guardianship would give David complete control over my property. Professional legal experience indicated that this was the ultimate goal of systematic. The preliminary filing included false statements about my supposed cognitive decline and William promised to examine the petition and challenge every fraudulent claim David. The guardianship hearing was scheduled within 30 days, requiring immediate comprehensive legal. The guardianship petition contained fabricated evidence designed to make me appear mentally. William reviewed the legal documents while explaining their serious implications for my professional legal analysis revealed that David had been building a false case. The petition claimed that I exhibited confusion, memory loss, and poor financial bis. William pointed out that the evidence was entirely based on David's testimony. Professional medical evaluations would be required to challenge these fraudulent claims completely. The attorney explained that guardianship would eliminate my legal rights to make. David would gain authority over my property, finances, and healthcare decisions if. William emphasized that fighting guardianship required immediate action and comprehensive evidence of. The petition was scheduled for court review within 30 days, requiring urgent, professional legal representation was essential for protecting my fundamental rights and independence. William's investigation revealed that David had been researching guardianship laws extensively for. Computer forensics showed systematic planning, rather than emergency concern for my well-being. Professional legal databases had been accessed regarding incompetency standards and guardian powers. David had been studying methods to bypass legal protections for elderly. The research included strategies for convincing courts that elderly people needed complete. William documented that guardianship research coincided with property theft and financial manipulation. Professional legal planning proved that David viewed guardianship as the solution to. The systematic research showed that David had been preparing this legal attack. William explained that premeditation would be crucial evidence for exposing the fraudulent. The computer evidence would prove that guardianship was part of comprehensive elder. Professional documentation of David's legal research would support criminal charges for systematic. The attorney discovered that the property deed transfer was designed to support. William learned that David had been coordinating legal strategies across multiple fronts. Professional analysis showed that the house transfer created evidence of supposed incompetency. David's legal research included methods to use property transfers as proof. The guardianship petition claimed that I had inappropriately given away my house. William explained that the deed transfer was designed to appear like confused. Professional legal strategy required proving that I had been defrauded rather. The attorney documented that David had been building systematic evidence of supposed. William realized that every aspect of David's campaign was designed to support. The evidence showed that guardianship was the culmination of comprehensive elder abuse. Professional legal manipulation was being used to legitimize systematic financial theft, and William revealed that guardianship would give David access to my remaining 95. Professional guardian powers included authority to sell property and liquidate investments without. The attorney explained that I would become legally powerless to protect my. David would gain control over my house, savings, and all financial decisions. Professional analysis indicated that guardianship was designed to legitimize the systematic theft. William documented that medical manipulation and social isolation were designed to support. The attorney explained that once guardianship was granted, it became extremely difficult. Professional legal standards made reversing guardianship nearly impossible even when fraud. William emphasized that preventing guardianship was crucial for protecting my independence, and the legal battle would determine whether David succeeded in stealing everything Professional guardianship would make David's systematic elder abuse completely legal and permanent. The investigation revealed that guardianship was the final phase of comprehensive elder. William documented that systematic property theft, financial manipulation, and medical lies were. Professional analysis showed that each component was designed to support guardianship fraud. The house deed transfer was part of creating evidence that I was. William explained that David's lies about my mental state were coordinated. Professional legal strategy required proving that I remained mentally competent despite systematic. The attorney promised to gather testimony from community members who knew William would challenge every aspect of David's fraudulent petition using comprehensive evidence. Professional medical evaluation would be arranged to definitively prove my mental competency. The guardianship hearing would be the crucial battle for my fundamental legal. Professional advocacy would determine whether I retained independence or lost everything too. William arranged for independent neuropsychological testing to prove my cognitive competency conclusively. Professional evaluation would contradict all of David's claims about my supposed mental. Dr. Sarah Mitchell would conduct comprehensive testing to establish my decision-making capacity. The independent evaluation would be crucial evidence for defeating guardianship fraud. William explained that David's systematic lies would be exposed through professional medical. The attorney contacted character witnesses who could testify about my normal functioning. Professional testimony from neighbors, friends, and medical providers would contradict David's petition. William promised to present overwhelming evidence that guardianship was unnecessary and fraudulently. The independent evaluation would prove that I remained mentally competent and capable. Professional legal advocacy would protect my rights while exposing David's systematic elder. The comprehensive defense would demonstrate that I deserved protection from David rather. The attorney discovered that David's insurance business failures were motivating the guardianship. William's investigation revealed that David owed over $70,000 in gambling. Professional debt collectors had been threatening legal action against David for unpaid. The couple's desperation required accessing my entire estate to satisfy dangerous creditors. William documented that guardianship was motivated by fear rather than genuine concern. Professional investigation showed that David had been hiding his gambling addiction from. David's systematic exploitation was driven by threats from criminals demanding immediate payment. William explained that elder abuse often involved addiction and financial desperation. Professional legal analysis proved that guardianship was designed to enable comprehensive theft. The evidence would show that David was being pressured to steal my professional gambling debt was the true motivation behind systematic elder abuse rather. William's comprehensive legal strategy would expose every aspect of David's systematic elder. Professional testimony would prove that I remained mentally competent and independent throughout. The attorney promised to challenge the fraudulent medical evidence and false claims. William would present evidence of property theft, financial manipulation, and medical fraud coordinated. Professional legal advocacy would protect my rights while seeking criminal prosecution of. The guardianship hearing would determine whether David succeeded in destroying my independence. William's expertise in elder law would be crucial for defeating this comprehensive. Professional evidence would prove that guardianship was unnecessary and motivated by criminal. The attorney's investigation had uncovered enough evidence to stop David's systematic exploitation. Tomorrow would bring the preparation for the most important legal battle of. William's legal team worked tirelessly to gather evidence proving David's systematic criminal. Private investigators had documented David's extensive gambling activities at multiple local. Professional surveillance revealed that David visited gambling establishments multiple times weekly. The investigation showed that David owed over $70,000 to. Financial records proved that gambling debts had been accumulating for over 2. William documented that David had been hiding his addiction from Jessica. The desperate financial situation explained the systematic exploitation of my retirement. Professional debt collectors had been making threatening phone calls demanding immediate payment. The investigation revealed that criminal creditors were pressuring David for money. William's team had photographic evidence of David meeting with known gambling. The financial desperation was the primary motivation for David's systematic elder abuse. Professional investigation proved that David's concern for me was entirely fabricated too. Computer forensics revealed the extent of David's research into elder exploitation techniques. William's technical experts found months of internet searches regarding property transfer. Professional elder abuse websites had been accessed for information about systematic. David had researched guardianship laws and methods to gain control over. The computer evidence proved that David's campaign was premeditated rather than spontaneous. Digital investigation showed that David had been studying psychological manipulation techniques. Professional forensic analysis revealed systematic planning rather than emergency family concern. The internet history included searches for assisted living facilities and Medicaid. William documented that David had been learning about elder abuse methods. The computer evidence would prove criminal intent rather than legitimate concern. Professional digital forensics provided overwhelming proof of David's systematic planning, and the evidence showed that David had been preparing this elder abuse. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's independent neuropsychological evaluation definitively proved my mental competency. Professional testing included comprehensive cognitive assessments and decision-making capacity evaluations throughout. The neuropsychologist found no evidence of dementia, confusion, or cognitive decline. Dr. Mitchell documented that I demonstrated appropriate judgment and clear thinking. Professional evaluation contradicted every claim in David's guardianship petition regarding the independent testing proved that I remained capable of managing Dr. Mitchell's report would be crucial evidence for defeating David's fraudulent. Professional medical testimony would expose the lies underlying the guardianship petition. The evaluation results showed that I retained full capacity for independent. William emphasized that independent medical evidence was essential for protecting my professional competency. Testing would contradict all of David's systematic lies about. The neuropsychological evaluation provided definitive proof that I remained mentally sharp. Barbara provided comprehensive testimony about my normal social functioning and community. My neighbor documented regular interactions proving that I remained mentally sharp. Professional social work experience helped Barbara recognize the signs of systematic. Barbara testified about witnessing David's lies to community members regarding the neighbor provided evidence that isolation was being imposed rather than chosen. Barbara's documentation included records of David intercepting mail and screening phone. Professional testimony proved that David was systematically destroying my social connections. Barbara could testify that I demonstrated normal cognitive function during daily. The neighbor's evidence contradicted claims about my supposed social withdrawal, and William emphasized that community testimony would be powerful evidence against guardianship. Professional neighbor testimony would expose David's systematic campaign to isolate me. Barbara's credible testimony would prove that I remained socially appropriate, and Dr. Martinez agreed to provide medical testimony about David's inappropriate medical. The physician could testify that David had been pressuring for unnecessary. Professional medical records would prove that I had never exhibited signs. Dr. Martinez documented David's systematic attempts to obtain false medical evidence. The physician's testimony would expose David's medical shopping for compliant doctors. Professional medical ethics had prevented Dr. Martinez from participating in David's. The doctor could testify that David's medical claims were inconsistent with. William arranged for Dr. Martinez to provide expert testimony about medical. Professional healthcare testimony would prove that David was attempting systematic medical. The physician's credibility would be essential for exposing David's lies about. Medical testimony would contradict every claim about my supposed cognitive decline. Dr. Martinez's professional opinion would expose David's systematic medical manipulation, and Tyler and Madison provided powerful testimony supporting their grandmother's mental competency. The grandchildren testified that David had systematically lied about my supposed. Professional testimony from young people carried special weight regarding family manipulation. Tyler documented that David had been preventing normal grandparent-grandchild contact through. Madison testified that her father had been spreading lies about. The grandchildren's testimony proved that David was systematically alienating family members. Professional legal strategy included their testimony to humanize the impact of. Tyler and Madison could testify that I demonstrated normal thinking, and the young people's testimony would expose David's campaign to turn family. William emphasized that grandchildren testimony was particularly powerful for exposing family. Professional testimony from Tyler and Madison would prove David's systematic lies. The grandchildren's support would demonstrate that David was isolated in his. Margaret from First National Bank provided testimony about David's unauthorized financial activities. The banker could testify about forged documents and systematic account manipulation. Professional banking testimony would prove that David had been stealing my. Margaret documented $22,000 in unauthorized transfers and withdrawals that. The banker's testimony would expose David's systematic financial crimes against me. Professional financial testimony carried special weight regarding criminal elder abuse charges. Margaret could testify that David's financial activities were suspicious and unauthorized. The banking testimony would prove that David had been systematically draining. Professional financial records would contradict David's claims about helping with my. Margaret's testimony would expose the coordination between property theft and financial. Banking evidence would prove that David had been planning systematic financial. The professional financial testimony would support criminal charges against David for. Community friends provided testimony about my continued mental sharpness and appropriate. Professional testimony from longtime friends proved that I remained cognitively competent. Martha from the Bridge Club could testify that David had been. The community testimony would expose David's campaign to destroy my social. Professional friendship testimony provided evidence of normal cognitive function and appropriate. Community members could testify that systematic isolation was being imposed by. The social testimony would prove that David's claims about my withdrawal. Professional community testimony was crucial for exposing the lies underlying guardianship. Friends' testimony would contradict every claim about my supposed cognitive decline. William emphasized that community testimony provided powerful evidence of continued mental. Professional social testimony would expose David's systematic campaign to isolate, and the comprehensive community support would prove that I remained mentally competent. The evidence gathering revealed overwhelming proof of David's systematic elder abuse. Professional testimony from multiple sources would prove that guardianship was unnecessary. William's legal strategy would demonstrate that I remained mentally competent, and the attorney had gathered overwhelming evidence that guardianship was motivated by. Professional legal advocacy would protect my rights while exposing David's comprehensive. The evidence would prove that systematic lies were being used to. William's investigation had uncovered enough evidence to defeat guardianship and support. Professional counter-evidence would expose David's systematic campaign as elder abuse rather. The comprehensive defense would prove that I deserved protection from David. Tomorrow would bring the most important legal battle for my fundamental. Professional testimony would expose every aspect of David's criminal elder abuse. The evidence-gathering phase was complete and ready for legal presentation. The family meeting took place in David and Jessica's living room with Tyler and Madison present. I arrived with William Torres carrying legal documents that would expose everything. Barbara accompanied me as a witness to David and Jessica's reactions to. The atmosphere was tense as David tried to maintain his false narrative. Jessica sat quietly knowing that her real estate expertise had been exposed. Tyler and Madison looked confused about why lawyers were involved in. I took a deep breath and began explaining what I had discovered. David, I found the deed transfer and know about the guardianship petition. The room fell silent as the truth began to emerge about. Jessica exchanged worried glances with David as William presented comprehensive evidence. William spread out documents proving David's systematic elder abuse campaign against me. The attorney presented evidence of property theft, financial manipulation, and medical fraud. David claimed that everything was done for my protection and benefit. Jessica tried to support his explanations but couldn't answer William's specific questions. Tyler asked his father directly why he had been lying about. Madison demanded to know if her parents had really stolen from. The grandchildren's questions revealed their growing understanding of David and Jessica's. William presented computer evidence showing David's research into elder exploitation techniques. The systematic planning proved that David's actions were premeditated rather than. David's defensive reactions revealed that he knew his behavior was criminal. Tyler and Madison looked shocked learning the truth about their parents. The confrontation revealed David's gambling addiction and $70,000 debt, too. William presented evidence of David's systematic financial crimes, including forged power. Jessica's involvement in property fraud was exposed through real estate records. The couple's coordination in stealing my house and planning for institutional. Tyler asked why his father had gambled away the family's security. Madison expressed disappointment that her parents had lied to everyone about. The grandchildren's reactions showed that they hadn't known about David's gambling. William explained that criminal charges would be filed for systematic elder. David became angry when confronted with evidence of his comprehensive financial exploitation. Jessica remained quiet, knowing that her real estate license was at. The family confrontation exposed years of deception and systematic planning too. Tyler and Madison chose to support their grandmother over their criminal parents. The teenagers expressed anger at being manipulated into believing lies about. Tyler asked to live with me rather than stay with parents. Madison demanded that David return my stolen money and house immediately. The grandchildren's support validated my competency and exposed David's systematic lies. William presented evidence that would prevent the fraudulent guardianship petition from succeeding. Tyler testified that I remained mentally sharp and capable of independence. Madison's testimony contradicted every claim about my supposed cognitive decline, or the family confrontation proved that David was isolated in his criminal. Jessica finally admitted that the property transfer had been designed to access. The couple's admissions provided additional evidence for criminal prosecution and civil. Judge Roberts reviewed William's evidence and immediately denied David's fraudulent guardianship petition. The court found that David had systematically lied about my mental. Professional judicial review exposed David's criminal intent rather than legitimate concern. The judge ordered immediate restoration of my property ownership through emergency. Criminal charges were filed for elder financial abuse and systematic property fraud. David faced multiple felony counts while Jessica lost her real estate license. The court ordered full restitution of stolen funds plus interest, and Tyler and Madison were granted permission to live with me during. Professional legal protection prevented David from accessing my property or finances ever. The judge commended William's thorough investigation and comprehensive evidence presentation that the family confrontation marked the end of David's systematic elder abuse campaign. Professional legal intervention had protected my independence while exposing comprehensive financial. Tyler and Madison chose to support their competent grandmother over there. The court proceedings validated that I remained mentally sharp and capable. William's legal advocacy had successfully defended me against systematic property theft. The confrontation proved that family relationships require honesty rather than criminal. Tyler's decision to live with me demonstrated his recognition of truth. Madison's support showed that young people could see through systematic manipulation. Professional justice system had held David and Jessica accountable for systematic. The family confrontation became the foundation for rebuilding honest relationships based. David and Jessica faced serious criminal consequences for their systematic elder abuse. Professional prosecution would ensure that they couldn't exploit other elderly victims. The criminal charges included property theft, financial fraud, and attempted guardianship. Tyler and Madison learned valuable lessons about integrity and protecting vulnerable. Professional legal consequences would serve as warnings to other potential elder. The family confrontation had exposed systematic planning rather than spontaneous family. William's evidence had proven that David was motivated by greed rather. The comprehensive criminal case would prevent David and Jessica from future. Professional accountability through legal system protected me while deterring others from. The confrontation proved that systematic elder abuse could be defeated through. The immediate aftermath included enhanced security measures to prevent future exploitation attempts. Professional legal protections were established to safeguard my independence permanently. Tyler's decision to live with me provided daily companionship and protection. Madison maintained regular contact while living with approved foster family members. The family support from my grandchildren validated my continued mental competency. Professional monitoring systems were established to prevent unauthorized access to my. The confrontation had resulted in complete restoration of my property rights. William arranged for ongoing legal oversight to prevent future elder abuse. Professional security measures ensured that David could never again access my. The family relationships were rebuilt based on truth rather than David's. The family confrontation had exposed David's systematic elder abuse while restoring honesty. Professional legal intervention had protected my rights while holding criminals accountable. Tyler and Madison's support proved that young people recognized truth over. Criminal charges ensured that David and Jessica faced serious consequences for. Professional justice system had validated my competency while exposing systematic lies. The confrontation demonstrated that elder abuse could be defeated through determined. Tyler's choice to live with me showed family loyalty based on professional legal protection had preserved my independence while preventing future exploitation. The family healing began immediately as truth replaced David's systematic deception. Justice had been served while honest relationships were restored through courage. 2 years have passed since that life-changing family confrontation that exposed David's systematic. Today, Tyler helps me prepare dinner in the kitchen while Madison visits. The house deed bears my name once again thanks to William Torres's. My grandson chose to live with me permanently after his father's criminal. The dining room, a table is set for 4 people, including Barbara who. Tyler is now 18 and studying criminal justice to help protect vulnerable. Madison finished high school with honors and plans to study elder law. Barbara has become like a sister, providing friendship and daily support. The intimate dinner represents healing and truth rather than deception, and our new family traditions are built on respect and honesty rather. The kitchen is filled with the laughter of people who genuinely. I speak regularly at senior centers across the state about recognizing property. Professional advocacy work has become my mission, helping other elderly people identify. The presentations include specific examples of deed fraud and property transfer. Community education programs reach hundreds of seniors annually who learn warning signs. Professional training for real estate agents includes my story as case. Tyler and Madison sometimes accompany me to share their perspective about. The advocacy work has prevented dozens of similar cases through early intervention. Professional networks have expanded my reach to protect elderly property owners. The speaking circuit gives my life purpose beyond personal recovery, and community response demonstrates that property fraud education saves homes and prevents. Extended family members have rebuilt relationships with me based on truth, and Uncle Frank visits monthly and apologizes regularly for believing David's systematic. Cousin Linda includes me in family gatherings while watching for warning. The relatives learned valuable lessons about questioning sudden changes in elderly. Professional family counseling helped everyone understand how manipulation tactics work on. Extended family now communicates directly with me rather than through intermediary. The healing process required acknowledging that good people can be deceived. Professional education about property fraud helps family members recognize red flag. Extended family gatherings include discussions about protecting vulnerable elderly members from. The rebuilt relationships are stronger because they're based on vigilance, and Tyler and I volunteer together teaching property protection classes at community. My grandson's criminal justice studies focus specifically on real estate crimes. Professional educational materials based on our story help banks train staff. The volunteer work connects us with other property fraud survivors sharing. Tyler's personal experience with family manipulation motivates academic excellence and professional. Our partnership has influenced policy changes, strengthening protection laws for elderly. Professional collaboration extends our impact beyond individual cases to systemic community. The volunteer work provides meaningful activity while helping vulnerable property owners. Tyler's presence ensures my safety while demonstrating young people's commitment to. Community involvement proves that surviving property fraud can lead to helping. Barbara continues monitoring my legal affairs with enhanced awareness of family. My neighbor now screens mail and phone calls to protect against. Professional paralegal experience helps Barbara recognize potential threats to my property. Barbara has developed protocols for identifying suspicious property-related contact or documentation. My ongoing relationship with Barbara provides security while maintaining my complete, professional friendship demonstrates that chosen family can be more protective than. The enhanced monitoring provides security while preserving my property ownership independence. Barbara's vigilance was crucial for stopping David's property theft and remains. Professional neighbor support continues protecting my house while educating other property. The relationship demonstrates that community support can prevent property fraud against. William Torres continues my legal representation with enhanced property protection measures. The attorney maintains oversight of my reigned property ownership while respecting my pride. Professional estate planning ensures that my property wishes will be honored. William's enhanced legal protections prevent any future attempts at property fraud. The comprehensive legal safeguards include monitoring for unauthorized property documents or professional elder law advocacy extends beyond individual cases to systemic protection. William has used our case to develop legal frameworks protecting elderly. The attorney's ongoing relationship provides security while preserving my property autonomy. Professional legal advocacy proves that elderly people can maintain property ownership. The enhanced legal protection demonstrates that systematic property fraud can be. Community friends continue providing testimony about my continued mental sharpness, and professional support from neighbors proves that I remain competent property owner. Martha from the Bridge Club can testify that I understand all. The community testimony would expose any future attempts at property manipulation. Professional friendship testimony provides evidence of normal cognitive function and appropriate. Community members could testify that I remain capable of independent property. The social testimony would prove that any claims about property confusion. Professional community testimony is crucial for maintaining property ownership rights against. Friends' testimony would contradict any future claims about supposed property management. The comprehensive community support proves that I remain mentally competent property. Professional social testimony exposes any systematic campaigns to steal property from. The community demonstrates that property ownership rights require ongoing protection, and property security measures now include enhanced legal protections and community monitoring. Professional banking staff know my situation and watch for suspicious property. The house remains secure with multiple layers of protection against unauthorized. Tyler's presence provides daily companionship and protection against property fraud attempts. Professional monitoring systems alert me immediately about any property-related legal activity. The enhanced security gives me confidence that my property rights remain. Barbara's daily contact ensures that any property threats would be immediately. Professional legal protections prevent any future attempts at deed fraud, or the security measures provide peace of mind while maintaining my property. Tyler and I maintain the house together, ensuring its proper care. To anyone experiencing suspicious property changes or sudden legal document requests, trust. Document everything concerning and seek independent legal representation when property transfers. Build support networks with neighbors and community members who can recognize, contact elder abuse hotlines and property fraud attorneys when family members. Share your experiences with others to help them protect their property. Professional legal help is available for elderly people facing property fraud. My story proves that property rights can be protected and restored. Like this video if our property protection story helped you recognize. Subscribe for more stories about protecting elderly property rights and recognizing. Remember that property ownership documents should never be changed without complete. Trust people who prove their loyalty through actions rather than. Tyler, Madison, Barbara, and I want you to know that home.